Good afternoon. I will not use my language just to communicate my sentiments. I will speak in English. Next time I hope that I will be able to use my language, Sicilian language. Because I wish just to start from my identity. I wish just to start from my identity because I think there's a strong connection between identity and mobility. And we cannot speak about mobility if we have no correct idea of what does mean identity. And to start, may I introduce me? My first name is Leoluca, not Luke the Evangelist. Leoluca. Leoluca is the name of the saint patron of Corleone. We have correctly heard, Corleone. Who is named Leoluca sure has relations with Corleone. And my grandfather was born in the city hall in Corleone, because in the past the city hall of Corleone was the palace of my family. My name is Leoluca. My family name is Orlando. It's a traditional name from people of South Italy. And you probably have understood that I am Sicilian. So, I have relations with Corleone. I am Sicilian. I am even Catholic. Nobody is perfect. Allah has told us that the most relevant mistake is to imagine to be perfect. Allah speaks with everybody, except with people imagining to be perfect. If there is some Christian among us, I can repeat that somebody has told us there is no God except God. This is just the same meaning. The perfection is not of this world. And I think that I can remember that Roberto was not perfect. He was Catholic, he was Sicilian, but Roberto understood that it's possible to combine roots and wings. It's possible not to have shame for your identity, but not to die closeted inside your identity. Avoiding just to transform your identity in the occasion of your death. So I will try to tell you some stories, because in my opinion normally we communicate using words, but the words are all the same, the words are all perfect, the words are all dead. I will try to communicate just telling stories, because the stories, as you know, are all different, are all living, they are not perfect. And I can tell you how it was possible that a man who is named Leoluca, coming from Corleone, being Catholic, decided just to remain Sicilian. And I can speak to you about two questions who deeply changed my life. I was 14 years old. I was in a Jesuit college. And when I was 14 years old, I decided to organize with my friends, the other scholars, a seminar about the mafia and against the mafia. When I was 14 years old, nobody used the word mafia. The rector, the nice guy, the director of the Jesuit, director of the college, protested with my parents, said, why Lucchetto, Lucchetto is the little Leoluca, why Lucchetto speaks about the mafia? We have nothing to do with the mafia, therefore we have not to speak about the mafia. Not watching, not speaking, not hearing. It was Sicily when I was 14 years old. This Jesuit was not a mafioso. He was not a corrupted man. He was a nice man. But he accepted to close the eyes, the mouth, the ears. He accepted just to live in a world where the mafia was governing our town. And you know that the mafia boss, they need 100, 200, 300, 400 persons using weapons. But they, first of all, need to have millions of persons not watching, not speaking, not hearing. If they are honest person, they are the best allied of the mafia bosses. Because they send the message that the honest people do not take care about the criminality. And it was Sicily when I was 14 years old. I was 19 years old when I reached Germany. I went to Heidelberg University to study. And when I arrived in Heidelberg, my friend, my German friend, German student, asked to me, "Where are you coming from?" I said, "From Italy." "Where are you coming from?" "From South Italy." "Where are you coming from?" "From Sicily." "Mafia." It was a contradiction. Almost nobody in Sicily used the word mafia, but Sicily was known in the world only through the word mafia. This question of where I'm coming from deeply changed my life. There was a second question which changed deeply my life. I was 18 years old. I got the best diploma in the high school. Mr. Director, I was the best Italian student. I have the proof. I have a diploma. I can give proof. I was the best Italian student. And my parents were so proud. Lucchetto is the best Italian student. And decided just to give to me, just like a prize, I wish that we have a Porsche. They prefer to give to me not a Porsche car, but to send to London. And I spent some months in London. And in Tate Gallery, I met a wonderful girl. I met a wonderful Sicilian girl that I met first time just in London, in Tate Gallery. And this wonderful girl came to me and said, "You are Leoluca Orlando. I've seen your photo in newspaper. You are the best Italian student." I said, "Yes, I am." I was so proud. And this girl was really wonderful. And after that, this girl, Sicilian girl that I met first time just in London by Tate Gallery, told me, "I am a Sicilian girl. You are a Sicilian boy. Tell me, what do you do against the mafia?" It was the only question. And probably you can understand that this wonderful girl became my wife. So you can understand the role of the women in the fight against the mafia. Two simple questions changed my life. More than 100 of hours of speech of Mr. Orlando. Where are you coming from? And what do you do against the mafia? I'm telling that because I think that is important. If you wish just to know Palermo, to start from the stories, not from the words. Because the words are all the same. They are all perfect. They are dead. They do not communicate. May I tell you that hate is much better than love. It's musically so nice. Hate. Try to tell a story of hate. Try to tell a story of love, and everybody will understand the difference between love and hate. May I tell you that mafia is a wonderful word. Mafia, so musical. Legality, not so nice. But try to tell a story of legality, I try to tell the story of mafia that everybody will understand the difference between legality and mafia. So, this is the city that is welcoming you, and I think that we can say mission accomplished. I wish to say that Palermo has had the privilege to host you, to host this colloquium, and to try to communicate to you through our stories that to change is possible. This is a typical traditional Sicilian expression saying "Cu nasce tunno un può morire quadrato." I have to translate into Italian. Chi nasce rotondo non può morire quadrato. Who was born round cannot die square. Wrong. Wrong. Who was born round can even die square. And it is the city just welcoming you, saying just to Chantal Bernier, thanks for your presence. Say to your organization, to your institution, thanks for your presence. Saying thanks to Mr. Cauchy. Say a special thanks to the old guy just on my left side, Vincenzo Castelli, that organized with Nova this wonderful walk. And I wish to say thanks to all the people who cooperate to organize it so well as possible your presence in Palermo in name of our love for our town. Because we love Palermo, and I think that the mosaic Palermo shows to you that it's possible to let the dog, the cat, and the mouse, they walk together. But shows even how urgent it is, how important it is to have just a framework. We decided to have as framework the respect of human beings, the respect of human rights. It's a long path, it's a long way. At the beginning of my experience, Palermo was the capital of the mafia, and the mafia governed the city of Palermo. From that moment, when we started the experience that we call Palermo Spring, we tried just to demonstrate that it was possible to combine identity and wings. That it was possible to be proud to be Sicilian, not being a mafioso. And in 1999, with Civitas, in 2000 with Kofi Annan, General Secretary of United Nations, we organized two meetings. The last was in December 2000, that is called the Palermo meeting. It's the first time in the history of humanity the whole states of the world, under the support of the United Nations, declared to fight against organized crime. And they decided to be in Palermo, not because they discovered that in Palermo there was a wonderful, beautiful mayor. Not because they discovered that in Palermo is a wonderful sea and a wonderful sun, but because they knew that in this town passed the fight, the first line, the front line in the fight between illegality and legality. But that was legality of law. That was legality of right. Today, we walked forward and we reached the point just saying that we are not happy if we speak only about legality of law. We wish to speak about legality of rights. In many cases, we know that the law doesn't allow the human beings to have correctly respected the rights. How many times we discover that the law of the state are against the human rights? How many times we discover that in name of the law of the state, people kill other people? How many times we discover that it happens? And just at the beginning of this meeting, I spoke about slavery. I spoke about death penalty. I spoke about residence permit. I spoke about violences were produced by law. So I think that this meeting is really terribly important, because the fight against the perversion of identity needs a cart with two wheels. I make a distinction between normal criminality. Excuse me for using the word normal. But the mafia is not normal criminality. The mafia is something more, something else, because normal criminality, excuse me for normal criminality is against state and outside state, against banks and outside banks, against church and outside church, against civil society and outside civil society. It is normal criminality. The mafia is not only against, is even inside. The mafia is against state inside state, against banks inside banks, against church inside church, against civil society inside civil society. When the mafia is no longer inside, is no longer mafia, becomes normal criminality. Therefore, the mafia without adjective does not exist. The robbery, the normal criminality, without an adjective exists. We don't speak about a Swedish or Italian robber. We speak about robber. When we speak about mafia, we need to speak about a people, an identity. Sicilian mafia does pervert Sicilian identity. Russian mafia does pervert Russian identity. Islamic terrorism does pervert Islamic culture. German Nazism does pervert German culture. They are against and inside. Who is the first enemy of Sicilian people? The first enemy of Sicilian people is a mafia boss. When I am in Corleone, I don't say only that Torina, Bernardo Provenzano, they are criminals. Everybody knows they are criminals. Even they know to be criminals. I say they are not worthy to be Sicilian. Just to cut the connection between the criminality and the identity of a people. Who is the first enemy of Islamic culture? The first enemy of Islamic culture is Osama bin Laden, who killed in name of Prophet, of the Quran, of Allah. Who is the first enemy of German culture? The first enemy of German culture is Adolf Hitler, who killed in name of respect of the authority. That is a value, a positive value, just like honor, family, friendship, a religious faith for Sicilian. And I think that to fight against the so-called identity-based criminality, law enforcement is not enough. Law enforcement is not enough. The meeting in 2000, the wonderful meeting in 2000 was a meeting about the law enforcement. But the law enforcement is not enough. Therefore, I disagree with my friend Rudolph Giuliani. I was mayor of Palermo at the same time he was mayor of New York. And he got a tremendous positive success. I remember what was New York before Giuliani. It was a place where you arrived and you just were controlling the time to leave. It was awful. With Rudolph Giuliani, Manhattan became a wonderful place. Just safe. And Rudolph Giuliani applied the zero tolerance. Tolleranza zero. But he defeated the normal criminals. He had success in Manhattan, not in New York. He had success just in that part of the city where the criminals were normal. Try to apply the theory of Giuliani in Tepito. Try to apply the theory of Giuliani in Granizal. Try to apply the theory of Giuliani in Tijuana. we need just the second wheel of the Syrian cart. In the fight against identity-based criminals, we need to have the two wheels. Of course, the wheel of law enforcement, made by prosecutors, made by sentences, made by police, but we need the second wheel, the wheel of school, the wheel of civil society, the wheel of culture, the wheel of respect for my own identity. If the two wheels do not march the same speed, if we have only the wheel of law enforcement marching, the car does go forward, gets around. And finally, people will say it was better when it was worse. In the same way, if the wheel of culture will march more speed than the wheel of law enforcement, we risk to organize a wonderful Sicilian concert in honor of some mafia boss. We need the two wheels marching at the same speed. And our role is to stand in the middle, the role of the mayor, to stand in the middle, and to check, just to avoid that one wheel can go more speedy than the other wheel. So, in fight against all the identity-based criminality, we need, of course, the two wheels. And we need what we call civil courage. Civil courage. Because the women, the children, the scholars are more important than the police, than the prosecutor, in the fight against identity-based criminals. And the people in Palermo are just, they can tell the story of the movement, that there was an important movement of people. You probably have understood that since I was 18 years old, I know a wonderful woman that is my wife. You will never see a photo of my wife with me. She lives a completely private life. She just wishes not to see bodyguards, protected cars, and so our daughters. They live a completely separate life from me. In a difficult time of our life, our daughters use the family name of my wife, not to be recognized, just to avoid any connection with my family name. My wife normally goes around the city, in bus, in metro, just speaking clearly against Orlando. So be careful if you meet in the bus in Palermo. Just the woman speaking against me, be careful, can be my wife. She speaks against me. I say, basta Orlando. We was too much time in office. We must be free from Orlando. And one day she came back home. She told me I was in the bus, just speaking against you. Everybody was defending you. There was just a man that was particularly nervous. And they said, shut up. You have no right to speak about Orlando. You cannot speak against him. You are a stupid woman, you don't know him. My wife thought, I cannot say I'm the wife. Be careful. Don't worry. You don't need the bodyguards. People love you. You don't need the bodyguards. People love you. And I tell him in my book, Fighting the Mafia, that there is even a Spanish edition, Hacia la cultura de la legalidad, published by Universidad de Mexico de Lima in Peru. And another translation in Arabic language in Beirut, in Lebanon. The title is Sold to the Next Design. I had to be the next. And I tell how many times I be the next, and how many times the women and the children of Palermo saved my life. the women and the children of Palermo saved my life. Because they understood that to live under the mafia control was not convenient. Convenient, not right, correct, legal, convenient. That it was much better to live without mafia than to live with mafia. And I wish just to tell you the stories that are strictly connected with mobility. Because mobility is the other face of identity. When we use identity is the first among the human rights. My first human right is my identity. Before freedom, before happiness, my first right is to be who I am or who I decide to be. Because my identity doesn't come from blood. My identity is the expression of my will. And I told you that my blood is Sicilian, but I decided to be Sicilian. I could say, yes, I was born in Sicily. I have nothing to do with Sicilian culture. And I could live, not watching, not speaking, not hearing. I decided to be proud to be Sicilian. My name of my pride is to fight against people perverting my identity. I'm Christian. My first enemy is the Pope organizing crusades. Because he does kill in name of God. And I have the right to speak against the God, the Pope, just organizing crusade before that I criticize the Imam that is a terrorist, an Islamic terrorist. Or before that I speak against the German people. I'm not German. I'm not Muslim. I am Sicilian Catholic. I first of all speak against Sicilian, who pervert my Sicilian identity. And first of all, the Bishop of the Cardinals, who pervert my religious identity. If everybody should do what I'm trying to communicate, we probably will not use any longer the word migration. Because migration considers identity like a condemnation. If you migrate, it means that you remain with your identity and you have no possibility to combine roots and wings. And mobility is a human right. It's the first among the human rights because it's connected with identity. Let's speak about the legislation. In too many cases, the legislation do pervert mobility, do pervert the right to decide where to live. And perverting the right to decide where to live, they make the same operation that is made by mafia bosses. They do pervert just a right, and they transform the right in a condemnation. How is possible to imagine that 1 billion of persons, so-called West world, when I hear the word West world, 1 billion living in Europe, in North America, can decide where to live, where to die. 6 billion, they have not this right. And I think that this meeting here is for me a starting point for other rights. It will regret that we can organize the next colloquium, but anyway, that if the city can organize a next meeting, for example, about the work as human right, the job as human right, about the human rights of the women, about the human rights of the children. It is the best way to fight against all the identity-based criminals, against the mafiosi, against the people who are using the law about the residence permit. They are behind the criminals killing in the both Mediterranean area. They are just together with the people just perverting and promoting the black work. And I can follow just along all the program of your wonderful meeting. But what I wish to tell you, please, if you wish just to love Palermo and to love and to say thanks to us for our welcoming, don't forget, Palermo is a city where mobility is considered a human right. It's considered, and we don't use the word migration, and we don't use the word communitarian people and extra-communitarian people. No. We use European people. And for us, European people are all the people of the Council of Europe, not only the people of 28 members of the European Union, because we cannot transform what is just an important revolution, just to unify the Europe in obstacle to have dialogue with the others. I should wish to speak hours and hours about our town. I should wish to say how strong is the effort of Palermitans to demonstrate that it's possible to be proud to be Palermitan and not to have shame for our identity. And we are on the way. Anyway, don't forget, Palermo is still much better than Palermitans. But we are on the way. Thanks a lot.